Welcome to the Power Panel podcast, a show where we follow the leadership journeys of exceptional African women at the helm of public service and civil society. Our question is, how do African women lead and deploy power? I am your host, Ambassador Rachel Omamo, a senior counsel, diplomat and former cabinet minister in Kenya. Our episode this week takes us to the idyllic island of Mauritius, with its white sandy beaches, whispering palms, and crystal clear coastal waters. Aside from being one of Africa's most prosperous nations, Mauritius is also a biodiversity hotspot, blessed with unique plants found nowhere else in the world. Documenting and researching this flora has been the life work of our guest, Her Excellency Ameenah Gurib-Fakim, one of Africa's most acclaimed biodiversity scientists. She's also a professor, entrepreneur, and author.
Ameenah Gurib-Fakim is an academician, University Deputy Vice-Chancellor.
Received the L'Oréal UNESCO Award for Women in Science in 2007.
Director of the Center of Phytotherapy Research.
But there is more to Ameenah than this. On the 5th of June 2015, she was elected by the National Assembly of Mauritius as the country's first female president, becoming Africa's first woman of Muslim faith to be a head of state. However, she calls herself an accidental president.
I have said, and I will say it again, I am an accidental president. Why am I an accidental president? I will take you back to where the journey started. I grew up in a small village, in the 1960s. And why I put the dates, because Mauritius was still then a colonial entity out there in the Indian Ocean. We were an extremely poor country at the time. And the convention would have it that girls would not be given priority when it comes to getting an education. And I had very enlightened parents. And from a very early age, my father said to me that you will get the same opportunity as your brother. And there's no way that you'll be denied education. We know that education is not free, but we're going to make sure that you'll get that education that you deserve. My parents were not exactly very rich. My father was then a primary school teacher. And my mother, who is really the power behind, why I say that she is the power behind, she was a very intelligent lady, but never got an education because at the time, again, it was said that, she will be married off. It did not make economic sense to educate a girl, so she did not benefit. But she was convinced that if she had been given the opportunity, she would have been in a different place. So she made sure, along with my father, that I get that education.
Ameenah's parents make an unusual decision about her education, overturning the conventional norms of the time. They are perhaps influenced by the multicultural nature of their community.
So I went to a school. It was a Catholic school, and I must say up front that I am a Muslim by faith. So they chose to send me to a Catholic school right from a pre-primary and all the way up to secondary. So I grew up in a village. I call it the microcosm of the world because on my right-hand side, we had Hindu as our neighbors. On my left-hand side, we had Muslim. So in the morning, I would wake up and I would go to the madrasa to learn, of course, to do the Quranic education. I would come back put my uniform and go to my convent school run, of course, by Christian, of course, Catholic at the time. And I would come back and I would go and visit my neighbors who were Hindus, and I would listen to the stories of the Ramayana. Why I put this is that this kind of upbringing is so rare these days. And I can boast by saying that my country is perhaps the only one right now where within 1 square kilometer you'll find a mosque, a temple, and a church. Our diversity is our strength. Our social fabric is strong.
The enduring influence in Ameenah's life is clearly her father. He is her role model and her mentor.
My father, who was, of course, my biggest cheerleader, was always telling me that there is nothing that you can't do. With education, with your intelligence, with your capacity and capabilities, you should be able to do anything. And I tell you this, Rachel, this is something that I've never forgotten. And this is something that has underpinned my career right from the word go. So he funded my primary education. He's funded my secondary education. Education became free in Mauritius in 1976.
Her father's support is supplemented by her innovative teachers, and together they assist young Ameenah define her future path.
You know, it has been a combination of both. The confidence my father instilled in me, but here I come back again to my teachers. You know, when I went into the Loreto convent next to my village, it was a brand new school. So the infrastructure to teach science wasn't there. So what our teachers would do is they would take us, for example, when they teach us biology or botany. So I would be taken to a forest and we would be taught the web of life. And this actually, you know, really has been the tilting moment that I thought, wow, I had fantastic teachers who actually kindled that interest in science. In fact, they infected me with the virus of science. So I became very interested because they could answer all the questions that an 11 or 12-year-old could ask. So when it came to choosing the career of chemistry, of science, my father said to me, you know, why don't you go and speak to a career guidance officer? Because, you know, we are out in Mauritius and we don't know what science is all about, whether there be future in science. So I went to the career guidance officer. He saw me come in and he says, ma'am, why do you want to study science? I mean, this is for boys. This is not for you. For a girl like you should be studying home economics and doing a career in that area. I have no problem with home economics. It's very fascinating because you'll be learning to do many things. But I was convinced that I had a future in that field because I was passionate. It was driving my everyday life. And when I was studying, when I was cooking, I was doing chemistry. So I said to him, thank you very much. So I went back home. My father said to me, what are you going to do? This is what he said. I said, you know, my father, I'm going to listen to my heart, not my head. This is where passion lies. So he says, okay, in that case, we'll help you and we'll pay your fees.
With the love and guidance of her father, Ameenah travels abroad for her university education.
And that's when I went to England. And in fact, he helped me choose university. I mean, this was, again, amazing because my father said to me, don't do a career only in academic. Just do something where you'll have a hands-on experience. So he said to me, you go to University of Surrey because there they give you 1 year out in industry. I mean, this is coming from a man who's never left the country, never pursued a career in any ways, with a school teacher. I listened to him. I went there. And then, of course, I did 1 year out in industry. And this is where I learned the ropes of science, the research. So I went back home and I said to my father, you know, I'm not going to, end up with only a degree. I want to do a PhD. I looked for scholarship. And lo and behold, I did get a scholarship and I ended up doing a PhD in organic chemistry. That has been, again, my passion because organic chemistry is the chemistry of carbon. And carbon, to me, of course, is the backbone of life on Earth. And so I eventually ended up with a PhD in chemistry.
Ameenah returns to Mauritius after the successful completion of her university education, but is unsure about what to do with her qualifications.
What do you do with a PhD in chemistry? You can come back and be a secondary school teacher, whatever. Came home and my mother said to me, look, you have been out of the country now for almost 8 years. Why don't you come and stay with us now and get something here? I'm sure you can try something at the university. Go and apply for a post. There's vacancy there. So I did. I got accepted. Then I came to university in Mauritius and my heart sank because the infrastructure I was so used to of course in the West wasn't there. This is something that I will say to young people coming back from the North, global North, to work in the global South. Don't expect that the red carpet will be rolled out to you. There was no red carpet.
At our first signpost, we observe that Ameenah's story so far highlights a paradox. Despite the pervasiveness of patriarchy in our societies, fathers can play a critical role in affirming their daughters' dreams, building their confidence and setting them off on a strong path to the future. Despite her apprehensions about the standards of the facilities at the University of Mauritius, Ameenah begins her academic career there, deciding to focus on a novel area of organic chemistry related to African medicinal plants. In so doing, she demonstrates the courage to travel along untrodden paths and to seize unique opportunities.
So I ended up working in the chemical plants. Again, what an education does to you, it gives you this way of thinking. And then, of course, chance smiles at you only once and you have to grab it. There was this regional project funded by, of course, at the time, there was no European Union. It was the European Development Fund, EDF, on establishing a database on medicinal and aromatic plants. I said, okay, I can try and do that. And this is when I landed up, just like Obelix, in the pot of traditional knowledge. I mean, this is the legacy of our grandmothers. So today, Rachel, I'm standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, our forebears. And we have a responsibility, and I use the word responsibility, of respecting that knowledge from our ancestors, our forebears. They have given us a huge legacy. I have a special thought for one of our heroes, a lady hero from your own country, Wangari Maathai, because just like her, I also built my career on the shoulders of our grandmothers. Now, just think about how much knowledge we have in our midst that we don't add value to. So I ended up developing a database. I published the database, and gradually I went up the academic ladder.
Ameenah's work in establishing this important database and later publishing other books documenting the exotic and endangered flora of the Indian Ocean islands of Africa is a significant step in conserving the world's biodiversity for the common good. But academic environments are notorious for their competitiveness and intellectual chauvinism.
I've been there, and I can tell you it was very difficult. In the 1900s, right, science was practiced very much in silos. So if you're a biologist, you stick to biology, chemistry, physics, etc., etc. And I was convinced, even at that time, that new knowledge will come when we start looking at the interface of science. Right? In fact, I was proven right in the course of this century that many of the Nobel Prize winners, they were coming precisely at the interface of science. So when I was working in this area, I was ridiculed. I'm an organic chemist trained in the West. I was coming back and I was pretending to be working on weeds and getting results. I mean, I was the laughing stock. But I maintained my ground because I was saying to myself, if these old ladies who I was working with, who were remain convinced that they were being treated with these plants, I mean, surely there must be some truth in this.
Seemingly unperturbed by negativity and ridicule, Ameenah forges on with her work. With poise and resolve, she establishes her own laboratory.
So I built the lab where I ended up working because I was still looking for that chemistry, in everything I was doing. I used the funds, as I said, on that regional project to create a lab. I actually was bringing a lot of credibility to this area. And in fact, what I was doing, Rachel, at that time, I was sitting on that very small wave, which gradually became a tsunami eventually. I was publishing in international papers, which was unheard of at the time. And of course, that was rising, a lot of jealousy. And the lab I built, state of the art, for that time, right, was burned down in 1994. Completely.
The destruction of the lab must be a shocking setback for Ameenah. Years of meticulous work, specimens, data, valuable equipment have been laid to waste, reduced to ashes. How will she start again? How will she cope?
So I carried on working, of course, until the lab got rehabilitated. Again, it brings me back to my dad's advice. You are capable of doing anything and never, even in the darkest hour, give up. Because when you give up, Rachel, you play into the hands of your detractors. I'd never forget, when my lab got burned down, one of my colleague, she came up to me with a big smile on her face and she said to me, "Oh, all your information has been lost." And I said, "This is where you're wrong, because I always keep it back up at home. So always make sure that you have somebody is covering your back, or you are making sure that you have a duplicate elsewhere." So I built on this. I carried on because I was, convinced what I was doing was right. And I believed in myself. And I said, none of this is ever going to bring me down. So I carried on. And in spite of all the adversity, it was very, very tough. And of course, then the minority status kicks in. She was a Muslim woman at the time. But I said, no, this is not going to detract me from anything. I'm going to keep on and I'm going to achieve this. This is my goal and I'm going to work towards it.
Ameenah's steeliness in the face of adversity is outstanding. Ameenah soldiers on, refusing to capitulate. As she awaits the reconstruction of her lab, she explores other alternatives.
I took a leave of absence to take up a post at the Research Council. So I was the manager for research and I spent 2 years there. And then I said, look, this administration of research is not me. I'm going to go back to my position of associate professor. And I said I will carry on with my research.
On her return to the university, Ameenah works diligently, undertaking innovative research and publishing numerous academic papers and books. She steadily climbs up the academic ladder, defying expectations and making history along the way.
I became the first woman professor in my country, in my university, and I became the first woman professor, dean of faculty, and then, of course, I became the deputy vice chancellor at the university.
Ameenah also registers other achievements. In 2007, she receives the prestigious UNESCO L'Oréal Award for Women in Science, and in 2009, the African Union Award for Women in Science, thus establishing Ameenah as an African and international powerhouse in science. Always ambitious, assertive, and self-assured, Ameenah aspires for the highest ranking position at the university, the Vice Chancellor post.
I applied 3 times, and 3 times I was rejected. I remember one question was asked to me, why do you want to become Vice Chancellor? I said to that person, when I joined the university, the final position any academic can aspire for is to become a professor and to become a Vice Chancellor. And I said to him, I have already become a professor. I have got the portfolio. I have got the track record. I meet all the criteria. So it is my legitimate right to aspire for that position. But I wasn't given that position because what played against me then was my gender and then my ethnicity. So again, I did not get distracted from that loss, if I may use the word loss here, because I said to myself that, you do not allow anybody to insult you. You allow people to insult you only with your permission. And I said, I'm not going to give that permission.
Indignant and affronted by what she perceives as injustice and discrimination, Ameenah takes issue with her third rejection and files a complaint with the Equal Opportunities Commission.
I was called all sorts of names at the time, that I'm being a disruptor and I'm a poor loser. But I just wanted to prove one point, that if you want people to show respect in institutions, the rule of the game have to be adhered to. And what I managed to get from that commission was that precisely there were no criteria which had been established for selection of candidate for the post of Vice Chancellor. So to me, that was it helped me kind of come to terms with the fact that it wasn't me, it wasn't my portfolio, it wasn't my track record. There was something else, a darker forces at play here. So I said, okay, no problem. I'm not going to get the post, but I'm not going to stay here either. I'm going to do something else.
As we take this short power break, we ask that you subscribe to the Power Panel podcast. Let's work together to expand the Power Panel community. Visit our website, birdsongafrica.com, and follow us on social media to plug into the Power Panel network. Email your thoughts to hello@birdsongafrica.com. When we return, we unveil the next stage of this journey. This is the Power Panel podcast. With her academic career at risk of stagnating, a serendipitous event leads Ameenah to fresh opportunities.
When I got the L'Oréal UNESCO Prize for Women in Science, I was, of course, invited to many conferences. And one of the conferences I remember going to was, of course, on medicinal plants. And I was asked to speak. And I was, of course, one day I said, let's go and see. They have these people exhibiting products in these workshops. And I looked at one product and it said the following word: it helps to regulate the level of sugar in your blood. So I said, okay, that's interesting. And I looked at the literature. And the literature was citing my work. And I said, well, this can't be right, because they're making a business out of the work I'm doing for free, because my finality at the university was to publish, the mantra of publish or perish. So this, of course, started a kind of, getting me thinking. And then I met this guy who had set up this contract research organization doing clinical trial. And one day I was talking to her. She said to me, Ameenah, you come with me and we can build something. And this way we can bring whatever you have garnered in terms of knowledge, in terms of data, to the world of business. And when my contract ended as Deputy Vice Chancellor, and I said, look, okay, that's it. I'm not going to become Vice Chancellor, so now I'm going to try something else.
Ameenah and her business associate established an independent research and innovation center. Through this venture, Ameenah is able to transfer scientific research to enterprise. She is the first scientist to break this new ground in Mauritius, despite the risks.
The ecosystem for such venture didn't exist it still doesn't exist, because in African countries, there are very few that actually nurture this kind of innovation, that nurture this kind of mindset of people who want to start a business based on the research findings from academia. Why I put this squarely in the discussion is that this is something that our leaders must focus on. We need to start creating an ecosystem where our young people out of university, not just university, any youngster who has an idea can develop that idea, can become an entrepreneur, and can create jobs. And again, my mantra has been, African must become a producer of knowledge, not just consumer of knowledge. And so this has been my thinking when I went there. In fact, I was very happy there, doing my own business, employing women, creating their place where these young people can come and get work experience. This is so important.
Ameenah appears to have a strong propensity for risk-taking.
You're right. Why I put the word risk out all the time? Because risk-taking is not taught in any business school. It is something which is innate in you, right? And again, this comes back to my education. And I say education very clearly, not instruction, because education comes from home. Again, my father said to me, you can do anything, but I took calculated risk. When I went to start my own enterprise, I took leave of absence from my job because this was my safety net. Because if that didn't work out in 2 years, at least I could come back to my own place. But the thing is that I never wanted to be in that scenario of saying that I never tried. I must try. I must go out there. I must do something. Because it is, you never want to end your life one day says, oh, I wish I had done that. You need to be able to go out there and do it. Take calculated risk, right? But do take risk nonetheless. I took that risk because the ecosystem, as I said, didn't exist. And it still doesn't exist. So risk-taking is very important.
As Ameenah took all these risks, what was the attitude of her family?
I got the support of my family. I got the support of my father. I got the support of my husband. I remember when I took leave of absence in July 2010, I took a long vacation leave because I wanted to actually do some voluntary work before actually getting to the business, because I wanted to clear my leave of absence from university. There was only one sentence my husband said to me, I hope you know what you're doing. So I said, okay, with your support, I should be able to do it. So that's what I did. So that's what I got. I got the support from my family. My husband never interfered in my life because he was very happy doing what he was doing. And this is again something I have to say to young girls. When you marry well. Find somebody who actually doesn't want to meddle in your life. And he didn't. And by so doing, by being indifferent to what I was doing, by focusing on his career, he gave me that space. And of course, by that time, I was a mother of 2 children. So that was something that I had to manage as well. Motherhood, family life, and of course, career. And of course, the challenges I was getting as a working mother, they were all there, managing your young children's education and, all that goes with that. So getting the support of your family matters. Getting into this mindset that you can do it, you need to try it, so as to say one day when you're a grandmother, I wish I had done that. So this is something that you always have to do. So keep doing it.
Now at our second signpost, we learn from Ameenah that women can demonstrate power through resilience, self-belief, calculated risk-taking, and standing up for their convictions. It is said that luck is an accident that happens to the competent. Ameenah's risk tolerance and her proficiency as a celebrated scientist unexpectedly collide with fate, changing the course of her life forever.
One day, that was the time when I had applied for the third time for the post of Vice Chancellor, and I decided to go to the Equal Opportunity Commission. I want to see a lawyer. I said, look, this is what they've given me. And what do you think? He looked at me and he says, there may be something you can do better. We can put your name down for presidency. I said, what? You must be joking, because I don't have any of this. I don't have the suit of a politician. And he says, don't worry. We'll push your name and we'll see what happens. In 2014, I went to give a TED talk in Brazil. The following weekend, somebody called me, the press, and they said, no, your name has been cited for presidency. I said, what? You must be joking. I don't have any track record in the world of politics. And she said to me, why don't you say it in a statement? I said, and the next day, what do I see? My name for presidency. And then the politician came and said to me, there's a problem because you are Muslim and we're getting a lot of pressure because Muslim women aren't supposed to be leading this, that, and the other. And I said, look, I will tell you this. I can push back. I can step down, provided these people can answer 3 questions, right? As somebody from the Muslim faith, they will need to know, as well as I do, who was the first employer, who was the first wife of the Prophet. The second question, after the first wife passed away, who was the second wife and what was she doing? And the third one, as a scientist, I need evidence. So come and show me exactly where is written in the Quran that women cannot lead. So a week later, the answer came back. They said there was no answer. You're on. I said, okay, we'll do it.
However, Ameenah encounters the social cultural barriers that so many African women face as they ascend to political power.
And of course, again, I was being bashed about because, this woman here, she doesn't know anything about the world of politics. And why does she want to go in that space? She's better off by, staying in her kitchen. She didn't get the post of Vice Chancellor because she's so useless. So I said, okay, let's carry on. And lo and behold, in spite of all these negatives, the party won with a landslide victory. And one day I was sitting in my office and I was watching, of course, the ballot boxes being opened. I closed my laptop. At the end of the day, I said, Ameenah, you're going to be president.
In June 2015, Ameenah's name is submitted to the National Assembly by the Prime Minister, and she is elected as the 6th president with the full support of the House. This is a landmark moment in women's leadership for Mauritius, given that women's representation in Parliament is quite low. What motivates Ameenah to accept the role of president? What impact does she think she could make?
First of all, I'll be very selfish here and I will say something. The first thing I wanted to do, I said, okay, I'll make history. I'll make history at the local level. I will be the first woman president. I will make history at the continental level by being the first female Muslim president. Okay, but at the level of my village, the message I'll be sending out to that girl growing up, she will say to herself, yes, I can do it because she's done it before me. So that was very important to me, that you give hope to these girls growing up to say, yes, it's possible. She's done it without any political background, with no history in that space. If she can do it, if she grew up in that village, why can't I aspire? I should be able to aspire too.
Upon her election as president, what are Ameenah's immediate reactions and thoughts?
Very apprehensive.
Why were you?
I realized then, it dawned on me, my goodness, what a huge responsibility. I can't fail there, right? I need to get it right. The thought process was as follows. I will go there. What I will bring to the table is the fact that a scientist is needed. A scientist can help make a difference to the narrative, because it came at the time when there were two very major things happening international at the UN. First, we had the SDGs, which had just been accepted in September 2015. Of course, the most sweeping decision, the most ambitious role that could actually bring in from the level of the UN, where science was recognized as being instrumental in the success of the SDGs. And then in November, when I went to Paris to actually represent the country at the COP21, it was the first successful COP where we should be able to make a dent at the level of the climate. So we were there, and I brought the message as a scientist president. And this is what is needed increasingly in the decision processes across the world. We need more scientists, we need more technocrats at that level to be able to actually bend the narrative towards bringing more women, bring science, so as to shape the decision-making process.
Ameenah evidently positioned herself as a scientist president, leveraging her long scientific track record, strong global reputation, and her gender as her central value proposition. She is a different kind of president.
Absolutely. Women, we lead differently. I mean, this is something that we have to bring to the table all the time. Women leadership is more compassionate. Women leadership is more about caring. Women leadership is to bring it to be more pastoral, to bring everybody together. This is how women tend to lead. I mean, it is not a weakness. And in fact, I say all the time, even now, the best leadership is a leadership which is undergirded by kindness. By being kind, you're not being weak. By being compassionate, you're being weak. And this is the leadership that we bring in. So when women lead, we tend to actually factor in that element of compassion, that element of caring, that element of family.
The relationship between women leaders and women followers is often complex and contradictory. Ameenah provides a view on this.
And we don't seem to realize, us women, what a key role we have to play in shaping this narrative, this dialogue, that we need to show solidarity. And Rachel, when you take it up at the higher level, at professional level, what do we see is that women tend to bring women down. And this is so wrong, because if we want more women out there to be that shining role model, we need to ensure that we actually work together to keep her there, especially if she's doing a good job. So our role is to actually build that network so we can help more women rise together. Because I tell you this, if we don't rise together, we're going to sink together very fast. What I always say, that women will find that they will not have that place at that table. If you don't have that place on the table, bring your chair. If the chair is not there, go and make it and bring it. Because if you're not going to be at that table, you are going to be on the menu.
Although the president of Mauritius does not run the daily affairs of government, executive authority is domiciled in the presidency, and there are constitutional decisions that the president is required to make that have political ramifications. In other words, politics is not so far away. By her own admission, Ameenah is not a politician in the classical sense. She has neither held an elective political office at national level before, nor participated in the rough and tumble of party politics. How then does she cope with the Machiavellian aspects of politics as her presidency evolves?
You use a very important word there, Machiavellian, right? And unfortunately, this is how people view the world of politics. And this is why women tend to stay away from that world of politics, because in the world of politics, there are no friendship, there's only interest. So in that particular equation that I found myself in, there was an agenda to bring me down. And they did. So this Machiavellian approach is very true. And again, this is something that we have to work on. And unfortunately, again, Rachel, is that you'll find that when you find yourself in that space, those who will bringing you down may not necessarily be men. They would be more women. So the jealousy, which has been encapsulated through frustration, because when people are jealous, what does that show? It shows that you have become a mirror, and that person sees themselves being negative. All that they can't achieve, they see in you having achieved, and that creates a lot of resentment. And so this is again something that we have to, as a community of women, we have to work on this, so that we help other women who are actually trying to make a difference. Because I thought I was making a difference. In fact, I did. Even now, people still, when they see me, when they meet me, they say, "Oh, we enjoyed this part of what we were doing there." For example, I was engaging the community, the country, the region in debates, in conferences. I remember holding the very first women conference in Mauritius around the theme of climate change and agriculture in 2016. So I was bringing a definite change in the narrative of what can be done from the State House. And this was appreciated by some people. Of course, jealousy came in from other quarters. But this is where you become a threat. You become a threat by virtue of the fact that you are becoming more visible in the world of politics. And once you start becoming a threat, then they have to try and bring you down and eliminate you from that space. But the thing is that you cannot eliminate an idea. I had become an idea at that time. And the idea of having a woman president, scientist, non-politician, I think it created a dent in our society, in the way we think. So I have sown the seed of this kind of, discourse of it can be done. And by doing things differently, the way politics shouldn't be done, because I was more kind of bringing people together. Because in the world of politics, at the end of the day, it's all about division.
Ameenah reflects further on her perceptions regarding politics and the deployment of power.
When I left office, increasingly people were telling me that you were doing politics the way it shouldn't be done, right? Politics is not about bringing people together, it's about dividing. Divide and rule is still there. Politics is not about sharing, it's all about hoarding things toward yourself. And I was more distributing when, for example, when there was a flooding or when there's a crisis, I will bring people, I will bring women and families, food packs and that kind of thing to show that we care, right? So this is not what politics is all about. I mean, this is the perception. But you can do things differently. You can, by just existing, you show that it can be done. And that's what I did. And I tell you one thing, if I were to start again, I would do it the same way.
A former British Prime Minister once made remarks to the effect that there are times in politics when a sea change occurs. The waves and tides of power pummel against you. It does not matter what you say or what you do. Suddenly, as if out of the blue, Ameenah finds herself engulfed in a political storm, leading to her decision to resign from office. Ameenah provides a snapshot of this tumultuous moment.
Because I remember when there was an official visit, because we were looking at the 12th of March, because it's National Day. And at the time, the Prime Minister refused to even greet me. And so I said to myself at the time, if we are going to come to a position where two constitutional posts, they are not going to be in conversation, there is going to be division, the country will of course suffer. So my first reflex was to say this will not go, and by being there, it's going to be more problematic for the country and eventually for me. So you have to cut your losses. But of course, by the time I had left, the vindictiveness of the establishment was such that I was taken to court. I went through a commission of inquiry when the issue has just fizzled out. I was taken to the anti-corruption agency. I was taken to the cleaners after this, big time. By that time, I was in the news 3 times a day. I was almost like a doctor's prescription for months immediately after that. And then it went on for 2 years after, because for 2 years I had to go to court because the commission of inquiry was going on. But I went there very serenely because I had nothing to actually, I didn't have anything to reproach myself. I had used a card that was given, it was my name. I had refunded 1 year before. Now to come and say that you have done a corrupt act by using a card, that's really is pushing it. So that was the only thing that I could be, put at my doorstep. And all the laws which have been changed to suit whomsoever, investor or whatever, the president in my country or the president everywhere, they sign off the law. They don't make the law to favor anybody. So to come and put this at my door that I favor this, that, and the other is total, nonsense. I'm sorry. And so this was the only thing that actually was put to me. Now, when you're a woman, you are going to be targeted above and below the belt. Now, the bit about the below the belt came in through insinuation that you had an affair, this, that, and the other. This is, of course, typical. For any woman in that position, you are hit above the belt and below the belt.
One of the major hazards of high-level public office is the pain and anguish of intense public scrutiny. Friends and confidants often disappear. Personal attacks and innuendo proliferate. It is a lonely place to be. But after every storm, the gale winds quieten, the high waters recede, clear skies return, and the strong rise up.
And I'm still standing. Nothing has changed in my daily now. As I said, I participate increasingly internationally. As you know, we've met at the international conference. What you have to do is keep going and never give up. Because at the end of the day, as I said again, the day you give up, you play into the hands of your detractors. Then you would have really lost. And I don't think with the journey I've had, with the building blocks I brought into my journey, to my career, to what I've done, I don't think that I should give up now.
She continues to dream of greater things ahead.
You should never stop dreaming. And as I will quote Salif Johnson, she said that the size of a dream must scare you, because if they don't scare you, they're not good enough. I still have this wish to do more for the girl child, to create, whether it's going to be through a foundation or whether it's through actually participation in more institutions which are operating in that space. I still believe that helping the girl child develop her own self-confidence, helping her to actually have a career through proper education, this to me is what matters more. And I've done it through my own daughter. I've given her the space, and now she's a professional in what she's doing in the space of computer science. And so give them that space, give them the confidence that my father instilled in me, that you can do it. And I say to young people, your future, your successful future will be my legacy. I'm very, very keen on to empower girls in science because of what I do and what my track record has been.
Looking back on her journey, what would Ameenah say about power and leadership to a young African girl interested in science and politics? What is her power mantra?
Power is an opium, right? It's a drug. It can become very addictive. This is the addiction that make people want to stay and never want to let go. And I think the biggest form of power that you can have is to learn to let go when it matters, when it's the right opportune moment. Because what is power? Power is to be able to shape destinies, is to be able to shape societies, to leave behind a legacy. To me, that's the real purpose of power, is to be able to leave a legacy. Because at the end of the day, Rachel, we will all go. But by the time we have left this world, we should have been able to say, yes, I have used my position of power for the better good. And that's what we have to do. Learn to actually leave behind a legacy. And this legacy must be a legacy of power through kindness.
Ameenah has weathered many storms and taken many risks along her journey. She has lived through the joys of unprecedented success, as well as moments of darkness and challenge. Despite the privilege and honor of holding the office of president, she remains at heart a scientist, intelligent, curious, inventive, and steadfast. She reminds us that in the face of impediments, the spirit of optimism can prevail. Armed with the strong sense of self-worth that her father instilled in her, Ameenah turns her face to the rising sun before her. She gets up, keeps going, and keeps dreaming. We remain grateful to Her Excellency Ameenah Gurib-Fakim for sharing her extraordinary story with us, and we wish her fair winds as her journey continues. We sincerely thank you for listening and look forward to your company during our next episode. This is the Power Panel Podcast.